Hello and welcome to my basic tutorial for my D&D manager for this bugbear, with a couple of modifications with it, but it is basically a simple tutorial for people who are trying to get into a basic painting. First, I'm going to be doing a couple of modifications for it. I wanted to change a little bit things from the bugbear. When I first saw it, it looked pretty decent for me because I like the old hags or anything else, but it looked pretty cool, and I figured that I can change it up a little bit and everything else. But the only reason I wanted to do this basic tutorial for most of the reason was because I don't really see a lot of basic tutorials just for painting. For some reason, people think that we already know how to paint, and most of the time they get. As you can see here, I got some skulls here. They are from Citadel Skulls. It's a Warhammer package. It comes with a variety of a lot of different skulls and different shapes of like orcs or aliens style. They even got human skulls a lot, which I do like. But right now I am literally adding the skulls onto the staff of the bugbears. And how I am going to attach these skulls to the staff of the bugbear, I am going to be using super glue, which is the most commonly used thing, of course. It's probably the best thing ever. But the way that super glue sets in, it's for some reason, super glue gets pretty sticky when you attach it onto your fingers, and it both gets next to your fingers. But for other things, if you want it to mend onto anything, the best way to do it, as you can see here, is I'm having a little bit of a struggle just trying to attach it, because I figured, it could be easily attached onto it. But the best way to probably is super glue and baking soda. Now, the baking soda, once it's onto the super glue, it really acts as a hardening agency, and it literally bonds in really quickly with the skulls, and it just sets in like concrete itself. And you may think, if there's a little bit of a mess up right there, you can just sand it down. Anything else, it works pretty well. I've been using the trick for quite a while now, and super glue is fairly cheap if you get the smallest kind. I get the smallest kind. Baking soda is also fairly cheap, and it's a great craft to just add it to your collection of crafting such as that. Alright, I am about to apply the first paint on here. If you're wondering what type of paint that I'm using, I am using straight up acrylic paint. There are type of miniature paints that you can use, which are probably better for first time you're starting around, because acrylic paint has kind of more of a higher pigment that kind of you have to put on extra coats on sometimes or anything else. But I use acrylic because that's what I mainly use, and my other paintings or artwork that I use for other things, I am starting to buy other like army painters. That's a really good one. I like to use those, or anything else, but they're fairly cheap. Anything else, but you can use acrylic as well. It's just you're just gonna have to practice on it. That's why I'm using these basic colors that you can get somewhat of a good quality in a miniature. We're just using acrylic paints that you got right here, and everything else. And if you're wondering why I'm not keeping inside the whole hands and head area specifically, and the hair, it looks sloppy and messy. Well, it's not a coloring book. You can go outside the lines. It's just the best way to, get all of your area covered and make sure everything's all is covered. And you can basically work out the details later and everything else. As you can see here, I am using a basic green. It is literally a green. I'm using really bright colors in this whole thing because I really wanted to show how basic this miniature can be by just using basic colors. It can be elaborate. I'm not going into too much detail into this. I didn't really want to go into much detail because it could just be used as an NPC that you only be meeting one time, maybe two times, but other than that, it is a pretty much basic NPC. As you can see here, I am adding a basic orange, literally another basic color. Like I said, I'm not going to go into anything elaborate. I can probably use a different miniature if you guys want me to, and I can show you how elaborate I can probably go onto a miniature, but I just wanted to show you how basic it is. You can just create a character or make an NPC that's just kind of like how fast you can create an NPC or character with this type of basic speed painting and everything else, while keeping the maintaining of the simplicity and but also elaborate the way it looks. But it's just a basic orange. Just since it is acrylic as well, you do probably have to put a couple of coats on and everything else. But other than that, I really liked the colors. I liked how it looked. As you can see here, I did switch to a smaller brush just to get down to the little finer details. I am pretty a stickler about that, to get down to the finer details. It is not too bad. If you did want to, the most easiest way you could probably do it is just like paint the whole thing orange and then go down with the brown. But I always like to go for the skin tone about basically how it looks for me and everything else. But it's just me going into the final details with that smaller brush and just checking out with every crevice that I can find. It does help out with and how it looks for most of how the character looks and how it is designed for. It just helps add for the illusion of what the character looks like, and it just makes everything look nice and more cleaner and efficient and everything else. Right here you can see I am adding the gray for the hair and everything else. Well, you did also see that me painting the blue fire. Nothing much right there, it's just fire or whatever, or an elemental that she has in her hand. Ain't nothing much, but I am painting the hair grayish. I do have a regular gray. You can go with any color you want as well. But other than that, it is a legit gray. So, I will be doing a dry brush on to my blue flame. If you don't know what a dry brush is, it is literally you take some paint and then you pretty much dry your brush out with that paint. It may sound a bit confusing, but it does add a nice effect of like where you barely want it on there, but you don't have to add this detail. I added this detail last minute to make the fire look kind of like a bluish, like a light blue flame where it's just flickering. And but other than that, yeah, it just adds a nice little effect. Like I said, you don't have to do it. You just be as basic as you want. I did add a little headband to the hair as well. I didn't go all the way around, but other than that, I am adding a couple of more details onto it. You don't even have to add it too on there. That's how basic this model is. But I am adding a couple more details, such as the teeth, which you don't really have to do. But you know, like I said, I've done this a long time. And so you kind of want to have a little bit more of a detail. You can if you want, but if you're just starting out, you don't have to. Other than that, yeah, I am adding a couple of white streaks onto the hair just to bring out the grayness and whiteness into it. It doesn't have to be perfect because I will be adding a dark wash onto it, and I will explain what a dark wash is when we get there. I will be painting the stick, her staff, legit one color. I'm not gonna paint the strings around it. I am just painting it all one color and just see how it looks and everything. And for the skulls right here, they are painted in a different color. You would have to necessarily prime them for you to easily be painted on. I didn't prime them. I really wanted to see what it looked like for me just painting them regularly with just acrylic and see how well that stuck. And so far, all I did was put 2 coats and it stuck pretty well. So I'm gonna continue on doing it, but it's always best if you prime your characters up before painting. Therefore, you would have a nice even coat of paint for everything else. Because if you are going to be using the plastic paint for what you are to be painting your miniature on instead of acrylic, I would suggest using primer. But I really wanted to experiment and see if I did need to use primer because these skulls are really small. And I think I should have primed them before I even took them out of the package because they were in these plastic these plastic twist offs where you just twist off the skull and you got them. So as you can see here, I am using a black wash as well right here. If you don't know what a black wash is or a dark wash, it is essentially, best way scenario is like black paint mixed with water very well. You can see all these bright colors when I apply the dark wash onto it. They get really toned down. They really get sheen down a lot within the whole tone of it. That's why I went with all these bright colors, because I knew that if I was going to use the dark wash onto it, I knew that they were just gonna get really toned down. I really like this dark tone I got from a friend. He really suggested that I would have it, and I've been using it ever since, and it really adds a nice little, you know, it adds a lot of it. The dark wash adds into the crevices of the whole model of everything else. So if you don't know how to make eyeballs, don't worry about it. The dark wash will get into the crevice of the eyeballs, and you don't really technically need eyeballs into it, and it just adds a nice little effect where you don't really need to make eyeballs or anything else. It really gets into the crevices of the shirts, the armor. If you got a really shiny metal silver paint, this is really great to tone down that silver, because you know, when you're in a battlefield or anything else, you're not just going to be the knight in shiny armor. No, you're going to be that gritty knight's armor that's been used in everything, you know. So I really like this dark tone a lot. The best way to get a dark wash is water and black paint and a little bit of dish soap. I didn't really use the dish soap method into it. You can use just water and black paint. That does get it on there, but it does kind of like wash away a little bit. But you can have the same effect that you can have here. Other than that, I highly suggest that you usually get a dark tone unless you would like the bright colors. But it does add a little bit nice to the grittiness of the other, of your world, because your traveler is traveling. He doesn't have time to take baths or showers every single day. He's gonna have dirt splatters. He's gonna have dirt. He's gonna have blood and everything else. But the dark tone really does add a nice effect. It does tone everything down for what I have put on it, and it does add a nice deep sheen into it. It really popped out those skulls. It really popped out the hair. It just like made everything pretty good. Okay, and right here I am adding the gloss finish onto the it after everything gets all dried and set in. The dark tone doesn't take too long to dry off. Literally, it probably takes about like less than 10 minutes, depending on how much you used. But I am using a shiny gloss finish. I really like the way it shines a lot. You can have a matte varnish into it, which just makes the characters look already as is. But I really like the glossy. It really makes my characters pop and shine a lot. Uh, and that's just what I like. There are other types that kind of you gotta watch out for. There are some brands that you would have to be watched out for. I forgot the name of that one brand, but it kind of turns your miniatures into a yellow-ish tint, which is not really good unless you use it for a specific kind of thing within that whole time. But other than that, this is like the most simplest creation of a bearbug hag they can ever do. Um, yeah. And when you're working with a varnish, make sure you get every single coat onto it, bottom, top to bottom, because you are also working with acrylic, and sometimes the acrylic does chip off. But other than that, uh, make sure you get it all doused up in there and everything else. But when the finished product does come out, it does turn into a nice shiny coat. It is nice and shiny for me. I like it that way. You can literally get the matted one and it still look the same, but without that shine or gloss to it. But other than that, I feel like I like this version of it. And other than that, this is like the basic tutorial that I can ever give. If you really do enjoy it, I really appreciate it if you give a like or a comment. I will probably get better because it's the first kind of video that I ever made. I really wanted to work with this type of video, but I appreciate it. Thank you.